This week's crypto recap. Donald Trump to speak at Bitcoin's biggest annual conference. And Germany finishes selling multiple billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. We cover all this right now in the Collective Shift weekly recap, actionable insights, and a breakdown into the crypto market, all in under 30 minutes. Nick, how are you this week?
Really good. We had some not so good news with governments finally selling all their Bitcoin, Germany that is. But then we got huge, discussion around Donald Trump, and he's actually going to be talking at the Bitcoin 2024 conference, which I don't know about you, but to be hearing this at the start of the year and in years previous, I would have thought it'd be absolutely crazy considering he's the majority favorite now to win the US presidential election. So huge things to unpack this week.
Yeah, for sure. I think we happened to speak about that at the end of last week's episode. The possibility that he might even attend the conference was probably, seemed, likely given those rumors were out, but for him to actually be speaking definitely, shocked me. So we'll see indeed what that amounts to. I think at the end of the month that is. So, but yeah, the markets in terms of what they did over the past week saw a nice bounce in the crypto market broadly. We'll get to some of the reasons or likely reasons for that in the coming moments. But Bitcoin is up about 11% at the time of recording. It's up around to $62,000 after being, I think it got as low to about 53 or 54,000 last week. So sentiment was quite fearful still in the market, and ETH now up towards 3,300. So that's up about 15% for the past week. But so quickly, some highlights. In terms of the macro front, we got the biggest news was the US inflation, the most recent print coming out, and turned out it was really much in line with the consensus estimates. And overall, as I've got up my screen here, we saw a continued weakening in inflation, which is exactly what the US Federal Reserve is really wanting for them, to be able to start to lower rates. So the market, I suppose, was relieved to see that happening, as well as consumers, of course. And I actually saw last week the Trueflation, which is another sort of measure of prices. Not exactly the same, but somewhat different. That has been trending down a while, and I actually saw recently, Nick, it lowered to under 2% annually. It was about 1.7%. So all signs are pointing to rates going lower in the foreseeable future.
And just touching on maybe ETFs, I did see that we saw dip buying possibly with another 300 million in net inflows to kind of break some sort of this downward streak. Not sure if that one was across you, Matt.
Yeah, it was really encouraging to see among a sort of a sell-off and more just, very quiet trading volumes in the market. It was great to see such a resurgence and back to levels, more like what we saw maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago after some negative weeks for the ETF inflows. Or I guess they were ETF outflows for a while, but great to see them back. Moving on to probably just keeping it quickly with the macro here, and we need to talk about it. That is, what is the Federal Reserve sort of thinking at the moment with respects to their outlook for rates? Just for anyone newer to this podcast, like, why does any of this stuff matter for crypto? Being a crypto podcast, well, I guess what the US in particular wants to do with their rates really heavily dictates, I guess, investors' appetite for risk. Cryptocurrency, of course, is one of the riskiest asset classes out there. So therefore, if the Fed is really wanting to keep rates high, which they are, relatively speaking, they are quite high at the moment, that's in general not that good for risk assets. And if they are to proceed with maybe cutting quite aggressively to the other extreme, that would be really beneficial for crypto being a very risk-on asset, as they say. So we had a bit of an update from the chairman, Jerome Powell, last week, who testified in front of a committee in Congress. And really, it was, I guess, it left the public and the market quite optimistic that, look, they're getting very close now to cutting rates. I think there is that meeting in July 30th and 31. I don't think the market expects a cut there, but in the September meeting, I believe it is, the market is really pricing in the first rate cut from the Fed. So that's great news as far as crypto is concerned. As we've said many times in the past, crypto doesn't really need there to be rate cuts. It can still do well without this, but it definitely really helps, I suppose, sentiment in the market when there is rate cuts.
Yeah, and I think he just said, quote, the economy is no longer overheated, which I think got a lot of people excited with that language, Because as we talked about previously, it is all about the language and how they approach, this, because it's carefully worded statements to hint to the market about what they're thinking about. But he also did say that he doesn't expect to cut rates until, they have, quote, greater confidence that inflation is moving sustainably towards 2%. So as you talked about before, we do have a bit of a signal here that we are heading towards that figure. But alarmingly here, he's still talking about this 2% figure. And I'm just wondering, will they tie on the 2% hill, or will they readjust what is normal in the market?
Yeah, certainly. I think, inflation's still in the high twos, like 2.9% annually or thereabouts. And yeah, if they waited to go 2.0, in my opinion, that'd be quite shocking for them to wait so long, given the lag effect that we know with interest rates. As we saw after COVID, they tried hiking for so long and it didn't have an effect until a long time later, which is how the sort of interest rate lag is, I suppose, a part of its design. So we'll see what they do in this sense. But just bringing up a chart here from Citibank. I saw it doing the rounds on social media, and yeah, it was quite shocking to me to see how aggressively they were pricing in, this start of this rate cut, cycle, and they were, I think, pricing in 8 consecutive cuts in a row, which
this is definitely the higher end for the audience out there. And we probably have the lower end with some thinking that they're not going to be any cuts this year and we'll have to wait until 2025. But I think the high level is just that the rate cuts are here sooner rather than later, rather than we're expecting another 2 years or so for these rate cuts to happen. And it's all up to the Fed at the end of the day. And as we talked about in podcasts previously, there is just a huge cyclical trend and correlation between global liquidity markets and the price of Bitcoin that if you overlay them, it's actually quite striking how they top and bottom at very similar points. And that's just why we'll continue to keep you updated, because that is probably one of the biggest bull case for the market heading into the next 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, well said. Moving on to more of a crypto side of things from the past 7 days, and definitely one of the big talking points was the state of Germany, or the government, really continuing to really get rid of, looks like all of their Bitcoin holdings after seizing about 50,000 BTC or Bitcoin in January. Yeah, Nick, did you cover this last week? It was just news after news after news.
Yeah, we're keeping members up to date and the public for our newsletter. And then after we published it, we had to make some adjustments because it ended up finally unloading all of that Bitcoin. So we got about 3.6 billion worth of Bitcoin that the German government had moved to different exchanges, and it was tagged on-chain. And it slowly, over the last few days and week, that figure has steadily closed to zero. So it looks like this huge wave of German Bitcoin sell pressure is ended. But then potentially we have to open up again and see now the US, who is the biggest holder of Bitcoin in the government space. They hold about almost just under 1% of the circulating supply, whether they're going to come out and start selling some Bitcoin as well. So while Germany's finished, I think all eyes now would be look on the US to see at what rate they start selling some of their Bitcoin, because they've said that they're going to continue to unload a few of those.
Yeah, that's it. I think they've held BTC, Bitcoin, a lot longer than a lot of other countries in terms of the size. So they've been a lot more, I guess, selective in how they're selling, where Germany was very unique in the sense, they sort of just got it in January and decided after a few months, okay, let's go ahead and sell it all. Presumably, I suppose that's a big assumption we're making here. I saw some people speculating that maybe they just sent it to the exchange and maybe they had a deal with certain like traders or certain market, I guess, participants, institutions who can progressively sell it off. So I guess the big unknown at the moment is whether it is actually being sold, or whether a portion has been sold, or whether all of the 50,000 has actually already been sold, which would be the most optimistic case for me. I tend to believe it would be some amount has already been sold, and maybe they'll continue to sell the rest. But we won't know until there's maybe an update from that specific entity that was responsible for selling them over there in Germany. So we may see an update there. Otherwise, I guess the headlines sort of speak volumes here in the sense that we no longer really, the market will no longer care about any of this. And that was sort of, as we spoke about in recent weeks, having an effect, we thought, on prices in the very short term.
I think one of the discussions that was lost, or maybe if you zoom back out of the importance, we look at the sell pressure, but the one thing I'm looking at is that maybe the strategic importance of Germany selling Bitcoin into euros. I know that's a commonly discussed topic because it's something that is very scarce, that is Bitcoin, and something that, Germany, the EU can print more euros. So it's this interesting dynamic of maybe countries still don't respect, Bitcoin as much because they do not even want to hold it. They still want money they can print, whereas other countries like El Salvador gladly posted that they're going to be buying Germany's Bitcoin. So this is like a strategic policy that I'm really interested to see in 2 years. Is this going to be playing out a similar way of just countries just wanting to distribute their Bitcoin away for euros or fiat that they can print, or whether we're going to see in the future these countries take a much more strategic aligned focus on what they do with their Bitcoin and whether they sell like scarce, commodities for, easily printable fiat. So that's going to be a cool talking point that I wonder if 2 years we're still going to be thinking about this.
Yeah, I definitely think we will still be talking about it, and we'll see how much El Salvador accumulates and maybe some other countries by that time as well. In terms of some other short-term market movements to do with the supply of BTC and the, demand-supply dynamics, we've finally seen Mt. Gox, as we spoke about recently, starting to redistribute, after 10 years of having the BTC and Bitcoin Cash as well, passing that on to creditors, the ones who signed on early to that payout scheme. They have started to distribute, and just a bit of an update there in terms of the timing of these sorts of things. I did read into it a bit, and there are 5 exchanges responsible, the existing exchanges, to really be more specific, rather than Mt. Gox. It's no longer there. They are responsible for distributing funds, and that can be anywhere between, the timeline for that is immediately, so I guess 0 days, to up to 90 days, depending on sort of which exchange is responsible. I think, BitGo, sort of a well-known custodian, I think is one of those 5 exchanges, but several others. So again, in terms of the timing, that may affect, whether we go all the way through to maybe September and October of these sort of actually hitting the market, and maybe a lot of creditors deciding to sell their BTC. We won't really know until, a couple of months' time. But once again, similar discussion here in terms of the headline now passing us. Will the market really care about this once it starts to be sold off? I struggle to think it would have that much of a conversation starter.
Maybe what's your view on the FTX creditors then, Matt, to finish on this topic of sell and buy side pressure? This is a positive news article that come up about creditors maybe being able to be repaid in October or November. Of course, they lost a lot of money. They're finally being redistributed in US dollars. Is this something that you're excited for, or is it kind of overblown in a way? Because I know some of these claims may have been sold, and some people may have been burned by FTX who do not want to be here for round 2.
Yeah, for sure. So we've talked a lot about, idle Bitcoin and other crypto like being, dumped onto the market, or that's the fear out there. And we've been talking about that for a while now with Germany, US, and now Mt. Gox. But this is one that's the other way around, which it could be an injection into buy pressure, as you just said, Nick. So $12 to $16 billion worth that could come back onto the market in October and November, as you've got up on the screen there. I struggle to think there'd be that much that immediately goes back into the market. I'm just trying to be in the mind of someone who had a lot of money on FTX and unfortunately was part of that the downturn and lost access to their cryptocurrencies over these years. You've had the feeling of not owning those funds for a while now, and maybe you've just been burnt with crypto and you think it's all a joke and too risky. You've seen the bear market happen during that time. That's time that's elapsed since then. I don't know, I guess they got into crypto for the first place, that maybe they are more risk-seeking sort of market participants, but 12 to 16 billion, how much of that will go straight back into the crypto market? It's hard to put a figure on it. I know we like doing these estimates, these ballpark estimates. I'm going to go a third. I would just feel like a third would be a good amount. There's some strong cases, to your point, as you said, Nick. People may be selling these to maybe distressed asset acquirers out there. Maybe if I was a creditor of FTX and I desperately wanted access to my funds, I could have gone on a secondary market and sort of sold those rights to get this eventual distribution in October, November, I could have already sold that on. Therefore, that distress asset acquirer has already sort of made the spread in a way, because I've sold it to them at a discount in this scenario because I need the cash straight away. So they would just likely take that cash, and that's the end of the transaction. So there are dynamics like that, but I think it will be viewed as a bullish event. Sure, it will be buy pressure, but I don't know. If you had a thought about, how much will come back into the market?
I haven't really put a figure on it at all, but more so people might not look too deep into it, and when they see figures of maybe buy pressure, that's just a soft sentiment catalyst that can help take us away from what we are now in, like, I think fear on the fear and greer index, up towards maybe some more comfortability in the market, because we've had a seesaw in the last, I think, 6 months. We went from peak greed in the all-time highs to just only a few months later in reality, which feels like a lifetime ago, really. Let's pivot now to perhaps the main event gripping the news cycle this week was Trump appearing to speak at Bitcoin 2024, the biggest Bitcoin conference in the US. And we've even got Republicans adding crypto to their policy platform. Now, this is the type of headlines that I would have thought you'd be joking to hear. The majority favorite to win the US presidential election is going to be attending the Bitcoin event, and not just attending, but speaking at it is absolutely huge. And now politics get quite murky here, and we at Collective Shift don't take any political position at all, but the impact of US leaders and political parties endorsing, speaking, and maybe creating a more favorable environment for Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is something that is, the outside of interest rate cuts we spoke about earlier, the biggest thing to move the market. I'm not sure, were you looked into this one that much, Matt? But for me, this is just probably the news story of the year outside of any ETF talk.
Yeah, for sure. I think when we look back on 2024, this will definitely be a topic that comes up. Like, remember that time when, well, the one who's in favor of becoming the president, that is Donald Trump, according to Polymarket and other betting agencies, he announced that he was going to be speaking at the biggest Bitcoin conference. Like, that's absolutely will be a highlight. Look back as a highlight of 2024. And I was quite surprised by the muted price action after this was confirmed. I know there were rumors about it, but there's rumors about a lot of things that never eventuate. So this was really big, and we'll see what he speaks about. I think his actual 30-minute presentation will happen on the last day of the conference. So that will be July 27, I guess, Central Time in the US. So we'll see indeed what he actually speaks about for 30 minutes. That's quite a big presentation.
Yeah, I think he's going to hit on the main points that they recently updated the Republican Party policy stance, the GOP. They come out and endorsed crypto as a key policy position, which is huge in itself, that now that crypto has made its way into such a tangible thing that it deserves attention on the party platform, because they talked about that the Republicans will, quote, end Democrats' unlawful and un-American crypto crackdown, oppose the things like central bank digital currencies, defend the right to mine Bitcoin, which has been controversial, and there's been some issues with Democrats trying to strangle Bitcoin mining, and ensuring every American has, quote, right to self-custody their digital assets and transact free from government surveillance and control. So this is a huge statement. It's up there on the policy website. Maybe we can link to it if you don't believe it for yourself. But huge deal, and maybe this even goes into our final talking point here of the Trump assassination, which, of course, people may be wondering what in the hell this has to do with crypto when we're talking about, one of the biggest news stories of 2024 with, a current, to be president of the United States, potentially attempted assassination. But this has tangible impacts because Republicans are widely seen to be in favor of crypto and have a highly likely chance of having pro-crypto policymakers create, actually tangible laws to facilitate the crypto industry in the US, as opposed to what the Democrats have done, which has been to really target it and to strangle the industry. So I noticed that he hit about a 70% majority percent to win the election on Polymarket. And now this coincided with the rally of Bitcoin, which I'm not sure if you're reading into that too much, Matt, or whether this is something to do with, Bitcoin price being correlated with, that chances of success, because if the Republicans do get in, that is probably more favorable for crypto.
Yeah, I think people always like to point one reason for certain things happening, but I think in this case you can draw a conclusion that the attempted assassination of Trump and those odds rising. So to your point, I think we were looking at it before on Polymarket, one of the biggest platforms for betting on the outcome of this year's election. The odds went from about 60% to 70%, in the hours after Trump was attempted to be shot. And we saw, obviously, in that time, Bitcoin really rally. So I think it's fair to draw that conclusion that the odds of him being elected went up significantly. And given they're pro-crypto, or compared to the Democrats, the Republicans sort of a bit more favorable or friendly towards crypto, willing to accept it as part and work on policy, that really was reflected in the prices of crypto. So yeah, it was one to watch for sure. Big news, obviously, will be, as you said, one of the news stories of 2024. And crypto, I suppose, benefited, I suppose, in a sense from the price action of what are now a more likely outcome, according to the betting markets, that Trump will actually become president.
I saw there was actually other milestones. If we look away from the Bitcoin, the political side, just in the industry itself, we're seeing this translate into institutional products and adoption. PayPal's PYUSD hit nearly doubled in the last month or so to 533 million. This milestone comes as they expanded to the Solana ecosystem. So big stablecoins, PayPal, which got off to a bit of a slow start, is now ramping up its impact and its kind of market impacts of who is holding these stablecoins. So PayPal, one that is the biggest fintech leader in the world, just quietly increasing their presence in the crypto sphere. This also happened at the same time that BlackRock's tokenized money fund surpassed 500 million as well. So big names, BlackRock, PayPal. This institutional product is allowing easy access to the on-chain yield for US treasuries. So you don't have to get out of the crypto ecosystem if you want to get that 5% rate. You can use BlackRock's tokenized money market fund and get access to that right away via, I think it's USDC. So two huge milestones. And this is kind of the same formula that I was seeing back earlier in the year, these big institutions stepping up and creating these products that are being used. I saw there was even an article out talking about the rapid growth of US treasuries are increasing higher than stablecoin volume or stablecoin market cap, which is one to look. And I'm not sure if you saw this one, Matt, or Goldman Sachs come out and they're rolling out 3 tokenization projects before the end of 2024. So do you think, this maybe the success of BlackRock in the space, more of this institutions getting involved, is that kind of opening the door for Goldman Sachs to follow BlackRock's lead here?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the business opportunity from, it's targeting US treasuries, putting them on chain, and then even targeting other assets in the RWA or real world asset space, to then also, commercially from the perspective of Goldman Sachs and other competitors, it just makes sense to enter this, what is a very profitable area considering the current rates on US government bonds and other sort of similar instruments as well. So I expect this to continue, and we'll see more entrants. So we'll see, will they launch 3 tokenization projects in the next 5 or 6 months? It's a heavy, a busy schedule for sure. But so far reports are that this will happen.
I think it'll be all focused on whether they build on public chains like Ethereum. That's probably going to be the one thing I watch out of all this, and the key takeaway. If they do, that's very bullish pro crypto. But if they're building on private, instances or anything that's permissions, then I think the impact will be less felt in the space.
Yeah, for sure. Just moving on to some SEC, the continued sort of losses perceived, dropping some certain cases. Nick, just quickly on this one.
Yeah, this one's SEC just taking, I think, a few loss after loss. They come down and dropped a case against Paxos, which is a key issuer of stablecoins. They work with Binance in the BUSD stablecoin that reduced that stablecoin to zero from billions and billions of dollars. They come out and dropped that investigation, and now they also dropped an investigation into Hero Systems, which are building the Stacks ecosystem and are a key builder there. This one really took my eye because I know we've talked about Stacks in the past, and why maybe one of its benefits would be that it was one of the ones that was registered. I think you said before the show, one of only 2 cryptocurrencies that were registered in that ICO boom era, which is kind of confusing to me that they still were going after them, even though they were one of the only ones to come in and register and try and play by the rules, which really took me by surprise.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll see more movements out of the SEC, and still awaiting their battle with Uniswap Labs, which was sort of foreshadowed in them serving a Wells notice not too long ago. In terms of the altcoin updates, we do provide multiple updates every week to bring you what you need to know in the fast-growing altcoin sector. There's thousands of altcoins these days, but we'll kick things off this week with Solana. Some big news there, Nick.
So Solana has been working on something called Firedancer, which is a new client that is rebuilt from the ground up, essentially. So I had a lot of the Solana team saying that this is the thing that they would have built to help run Solana if they were building Solana in 2024. So this is being built by Jump Crypto, and it's finally reached its first block on testnet. So a huge milestone here, kind of signals that they're going to potentially release something called Frankendancer, which is a kind of a hybrid version of Firedancer to get something going on Mainnet by the end of the year. I think that still looks like it's potentially going to happen, and the full rollout is still scheduled for somewhere in 2025. So huge deal here, because Firedancer not only promises to help make the Solana system more robust, and hopefully it means that this network downtime and a lot of the congestion and a lot of the kind of nitty-gritty issues that have been plaguing the network for so long could potentially be resolved. And this is a big step forward that is only, I think, really reminiscent of Solana maybe reaching that Ethereum status, because as we know, Ethereum is one of the most robust ecosystems there is. There's lots of clients out there. There's a lot of not only building in the core Ethereum foundation, but just anyone else building on the chain itself. So this is one I really like to see, and hopefully we can start to see some sort of partial rollout by the end of the year.
Yeah, for sure. That partial rollout's important. I've seen the market or the community seems to think that Firedancer could be available this year in its full form. But yeah, Frankendancer is the one to look at as the next thing that could be announced at breakpoint, 50-50. I think Anatoly is putting it. He said in May that it could be available at breakpoint, which is in September. But look, personally, I would expect by the end of next year, Firedancer on Mainnet should be available, but we don't have any date yet. That's just an estimate. In terms of altcoin updates, we saw plenty over in Europe, in Belgium, where ETC was held. So one of Ethereum's biggest annual community conferences. Yeah, several altcoin announcements there. We saw, starting off with Starkware, they announced a proposal they were going to be making to the Starknet sort of ecosystem or community to do with staking their native tokens. So I'm not sure if that's actually being proposed yet, but they're definitely planning to do so. So adding some more utility potentially to the Starknet token.
So that kind of follows on similar things with seeing Arbitrum. These layer 2s trying to start creating some more utility for the token, and staking is something we've talked about a lot before, of being a source of that utility. Maybe pivoting now to Ton application chains. They announced it's building L2s on Ton that use Polygon technology at the conference. So that's a really big one. We saw Solana, look at doing a similar thing. So these other ecosystems are kind of looking at solving scaling in a similar way to Ethereum. So a lot to look forward to there. I'm not sure if you saw this new blockchain, Matt, but we got another blockchain on the block. This one's Story Protocol, a major announcement at ETC. They're focused on really tailoring IP to blockchain and finding a way just to build a purpose-built blockchain, facilitating the presence, the distribution, and the storage of intellectual property. So this is one I found really interesting, did the rounds, and I just wonder if we're going to see IP take off on blockchain, if that's a really cool use case.
Yeah, very ambitious goal there, but yeah, we'll see how it goes for this particular project Story Protocol. In terms of other altcoin updates, not really associated with ECC, we saw that well-covered sort of three-way merger for the AI tokens. The ASI token will be the official token of that once it finishes. So the first of 2 phases was completed just in the last week or so, and I think it will be finalized by the end of this month. You've got Fetch, Ocean, and Singularitynet all merging together. So I think the Fetch, I've seen it on CoinGecko, they've started to update it, and I think it's now around 25th or 30th by market cap, but we'll see more out of that once that completes this month.
Perfect. The final altcoin announcement here I saw is that there's going to be a coming launch with Sanctum, which is one that we've been kind of keeping on tabs about, and they're releasing their upcoming cloud token launch and airdrop in the coming weeks. So one to watch there in the Solana space.
Nice. In terms of things to look forward to for the week ahead, definitely it's being touted as Ethereum ETF week. I think a lot of people have had this week as the most likely for these Ethereum ETFs to officially, I guess, be approved, the second of 2 stages, and actually to start trading not long after that. So that's widely expected. No guarantee that it happens, but yeah, all the signs are pointing to this being the week the ETFs go live, as I've got on our screen here.
Perfect. Keen for us to get together next week on the pod, because that's going to be definitely, I think, the key topic there. Hopefully we finally get a date on the ETH ETF, which has been plaguing us for a while now. Maybe shifting gears to the rapid fire over underappreciated, Matt. I hear Chainlink's in your eye this week.
Yeah, in terms of, I guess underappreciated or underrated, I don't really see much conversation about, Chainlink's upcoming mainnet upgrade to do with launching CCIP. So it's been out now for over a year in terms of an early access sort of version, but it's meant to be coming out on mainnet fully, very soon. They've been saying that for a while now, so I would expect that to happen any day. Why have I got it highlighted this week? Well, really, when we look to the end of the year, it would be one of the biggest, I think, project announcements coming out. I think we talk about Uniswap v4 a lot as well, but Chainlink, they've been doing a lot of testing of CCIP, so their cross-chain, sort of interoperability protocol, which a lot of the big banks have been trialing as well. So Chainlink is wanting that to be used by private blockchains as well as public blockchains, and it actually, what I like about it, one of the things I like about it is it sort of creates demand for the Link token, because you sort of need Link to be able to use the CCIP protocol, from my understanding last time I did look at it. So excited for that to launch very soon, I hope.
Perfect. Yeah, one that I think we're going to fill in members on our shiftless report, I think, that we do at the end of each month.
Yeah, for sure. What have you got this week, Nick?
I've got just a failed vote to overturn Biden's veto on SAB 121, which of course we've talked about in the past, is all about allowing banks to engage with and access and provide crypto services to their clients. This one was vetoed back last month and failed to be overturned via the vote. So unfortunately, I think we're going to have to wait until a new government comes in to hopefully get banks able to onboard and give crypto access to their customers.
Yeah, we'll see with that. Good pick up to finish things off. But that is a wrap for this week. If you are looking for more insights, see our revamped weekly Shift newsletter, providing free weekly market insights every Friday. Subscribe at collectiveshift.io/newsletter. That's collectiveshift.io/newsletter.